Okay, so we saw that when we create a blueprint for a specific actor, that we can give it multiple meshes and multiple components in general, and we could make any of those the root if we want to. So we made this cone the root component. And now I'm going to show you that not only does translation affect the children, so when you move the root component, the child moves along with it, but also rotation. So we saw that as we rotate the cone, the cube rotates along with it, but so does scale as well. So if we hit the R key and we hover into the middle so we can scale everything, you'll see that we're scaling not only the cone, but we're scaling the cube as well, and we're also scaling the cube's distance from the cone. So basically the entire actor as one unit is being scaled. And that's because when we have the overall actor selected, whatever changes we make to it, rotation, location, scale changes, those affect the root component and everything attached to the root component, because basically the root is the parent and all the children follow accordingly. Now, you can, as we've seen before, select an individual child and decide to move it, scale it, rotate it, whatever you want, and it will be rotated, scaled, and translated individually. And you can do that inside of the blueprint. You can also do that in the world by selecting individual components of instances of different objects in the world. And to do that, what we do is we have our blueprint, our actor selected. If we come over to the details panel here, you'll see just below its name here, if you hover just above the search details, you'll get this thing that you can drag down. And if you drag it down, you'll see that this actor that we have here has its components, and we can select the components individually. So the very top says the name of the actor, my actor, and you'll see it says my actor 4. Now remember, in a previous video, we dragged several of these into the world. If we drag a new one into the world, you'll see that it's automatically named by the engine, and so this one was named my actor. If we drag another one into the world, it's automatically named my actor 2. Now if we delete those, both of them, and then drag a new one in, it's automatically named my actor again. So depending on how many of a particular actor there are in the world, it will be given its own unique name by the engine automatically by appending a number at the end of it. And so this one in particular has the name my actor 4. And in the details panel in the components here, you'll see that my actor 4 is selected whenever we select that actor in the world. However, below we can see the different components of it. And so if we select the cube, for example, then we can move the cube individually, independently of the cone, and that's basically just moving the cube around in the world, and in that way we can do this for an individual instance of the actor. So when we did it inside of the blueprint here, we're changing the blueprint itself. And this will change every single my actor that we drag into the world. But when we do it on an individual instance in the world, then it's not changing the actual template, the actual blueprint. It's just changing that one individual instance of it. So each one can be unique and have its own size, scale, and rotation. And even, selecting individual components of that actor, they can have different locations relative to their root, and that won't affect other instances. So in the world, you select them individually and you alter them on a per instance basis. But in the blueprint, what you're doing is you're editing the default for this class. And by editing the default, you're going to affect all of them, and they will all be affected accordingly. So it's important to distinguish the difference between editing the actual blueprint and editing an instance in the world. So that's something that you want to really make sure you understand, that when you select an object that's actually in the world, you're editing that individual instance, and other objects of that same class will not be affected. Whereas if you have the actor open in the blueprint editor and you make changes to the actor, then all of the blueprints will be affected. And just to drive that point home, I'm going to bring this cube up to the tip of the cone here so that it's touching. And I'm going to come back in the world, and you'll see that this particular instance is affected, and this particular instance is affected, but we've also edited this one by selecting its cube and moving it around, and so it's affected a little differently because the default change was applied in addition to the change that we made on this individual instance here. So we can, drag another object in, and you'll see that it looks more like the default, but on that individual instance, we can select individual components of it, move them around, and that change is unique to that particular instance. So that is a distinction between editing the defaults of a blueprint versus editing an individual instance of a blueprint. So it's important that you get that distinction down and understand that.